After we understood the overview of EazyBI, the preparation of reports, preparation of dashboard, the way that we go to the Analyze tab and drag and drop the dimensions to the columns on the rows, let's understand much more deeply what is the data model behind EazyBI. EazyBI is using this terminology everywhere in the documentation, in the formulas, in all the training videos, everywhere. You need to understand the data model. You need to understand what is a dimension and what is a measure, how to use it, what is the difference between this and a property. You need to understand it. So in order for you to understand, we prepared here a very deep dive and explanation into the data model. So this is crucial that you understand it, this data model. All the other things that are explained later in this training are based on this data model. So please pay attention very carefully. All right, so let's take an example. Let's take an epics table. Let's take an epics table. So let's go to the Analyze. And I want to search for my epics table. This is my epics table. So I prepared in advance a table of epics. This table of epics shows me a list of epics here. If I click on this plus sign, I see the list of stories under that epic. And if I click here, I even see the subtasks under the story. But for now, it doesn't matter. I just want to see a list of epics. I want to see the issue type. I want to see all kinds of information about the epics. And now let's understand the various terms that we are using in EazyBI. There are 4 terms that you need to understand. One of them is a dimension. Second is a member of a dimension. Third one is a measure. And fourth one is property. You need to really understand good the difference between them. And now I will explain each one of them. So here, our dimension is the issue dimension. Okay? What is a dimension? A dimension is something in Jira, a field in Jira, or an entity in Jira, which has list of values, and this is not a free text, not free text and not numeric. Okay, so for example, if we let's duplicate this tab, and let's remove the issue dimension, and let's have a new report. And let's say that I want to see the list of priorities. So priority is a dimension. Priority is a dimension in Jira. Sorry, in EazyBI. It is the field in Jira, but this field is the single selection field, which allows me to set the priority of each issue. And that's why I'm able to import this field into Jira as a dimension. So dimension is something that has list of values. Let's take another example. Let's say a fixed version. I can take the fixed version, put it in the rows. And again, this is a dimension. This dimension shows me inside it list of projects. And inside the project, I have list of statuses of versions. And inside the statuses, I can see the list of actual versions in the project. So every one of those rows here is a version in the alpha project. And the whole fixed version is a dimension. Why? Because it is a closed list of values in the system. A closed list of values. For what is not closed? For example, if you have a text field, one-line text or multi-line text field, of course, this is not closed list of values. This is free text. This one, by default, you cannot import as a dimension. You can import as a dimension single selection list, multi-selection list, radio button, checkboxes, and those kinds of fields which you select options from them, you can import to EazyBI as a dimension. Now, why it's important to make this distinction? Why it's important that a dimension has a closed list of values? Let's do an example. I take the project dimension. Of course, project is also a closed list of values. We have a list of projects. Let's put it in the pages. And let's select project alpha. Okay, and here, let's look only on versions. So I have list of versions in alpha project. All right, so what do I do with it? Okay, I know how many issues exist for each one of the versions. Okay, so this list of values of the version, of the fixed version, EazyBI knows what the list of values of the fixed version. That's why it's able to put here in the rows the exact list of values for that dimension. Okay, and each row, by the way, each row here, it's called a member of the dimension. So 5.0 is a member, which is actually a version inside the fixed version dimension. So a dimension is the general idea of a field, and each value of that field is called a member in EazyBI. Now, I can put another dimension in the columns, for example. Let's take status, put it here. Okay, and if I open this, expand the all statuses, I will be able to see the list of issues, actually the number of issues per version, per status, okay? Per version, per fixed version, per status. So what is this in progress closed to do and done? Those are members inside the status dimension. Again, status dimension is a field which has a closed list of values. Please note that it doesn't have to be single selection. Fixed version, as we know, has possibility to have multi versions in the same field, right? I can have one issue allocated to several fixed versions, and that's okay. EazyBI can handle it. Multi-selection is allowed. Also, checkboxes, for example, I can check several options inside the field, but still it should be list of values and not a free text and not numeric field. Okay, so because a field is having list of values there, EazyBI very easily can show me the distribution of the information across those members. All right, so I know, for example, there are 25 issues which are actually allocated to fixed version 8.0 with status to do. And if I want to see them, I just click here and I will get the list of 25 issues. And by the way, we are currently filtered for demo alpha project. If I go to demo beta, of course, I get different information. Okay, so what can we learn from it? We have a dimension, which is a field with list of values, and each one of the values is called a member. That's the terminology in EazyBI. By the way, if we go here to all fixed versions and we go to here and we go to this one and we go to this one also, we expand it all the way down, this is called a hierarchy and we'll talk about it. Each one of those rows also is some kind of a member, but it's not a regular member. Yes, it's not a version. It's actually an aggregation of versions. So the unreleased row here is also a member inside the fixed version dimension. It's just not a native member. It's not a native in Jira. It is an aggregation of versions in Jira which are unreleased. Each one of those are indeed real versions in Jira. Real versions, I can go to it, I can go to source, I can I can view this version in Jira. This one, I'm not able to go to source. I'm not able to view in Jira all the unreleased versions. Of course, I can do it from the release dashboard, but basically there is no such entity called unreleased. There is entity called 6.0. The unreleased is only an aggregation in EazyBI of other lower level members. And the demo beta is also an aggregation of those aggregations, right? So we have an hierarchy there. Okay, so if we understood what is a dimension and what is a member, let's look at what is a measure. A measure basically is a numeric field. It can be also a calculated measure which contains a formula, and we will learn about it during the training. Basically, what you need to know is that measure, once you import a numeric field into Jira, or you maybe use the built-in EazyBI measures, it is automatically summed up. The default behavior of EazyBI is to sum up the measure, not minimum, not maximum, not average, nothing. It is summing up. This is the automatic behavior, the default behavior of EazyBI. If you want to do something else, it's possible to do it, but you need to start to use other measures or to use formulas in order to do it. So let's look at a few examples. Let's say that I want to get rid of this status dimension. And inside the measures, I want to see the amount of issues created, the amount of issues resolved, and also the original estimated hours. Okay, those are all measures. Those are all measures. And those measures show me the information according to the relevant member that I'm currently viewing in the table. Okay, so every measure knows what to show according to the list of rows and columns that exist in my table. So for example, the unreleased, if I open it, I see that there are 17 issues that are allocated to version 7.0 in project beta, and out of those 17 are resolved. Yes, all of them are resolved. And the total original estimated hours for those issues is 44. And I can also drill through and look at the data, the raw data. How did I get this 44? So all those measures are built-in measures in EazyBI. We have the predefined measures, all those. We have also additional predefined here, and we'll talk about them later. And of course, we can also prepare user-defined measures where we can write our own formulas, and we will learn it in the third part of the course. Okay, so all of those are measures. What's the difference, the main difference between a measure and a dimension? A dimension contains list of values, closed list of values, closed set of values. For example, fixed version contains a closed set of versions. Every time you import from Jira to EazyBI, EazyBI knows what is the list of versions in Jira, and that is the list. It's a finite list. However, the measure is something else. It is actually a number coming from some numeric field in Jira, yes, or from some calculation in EazyBI, which is actually the result of some cross-section between some dimension members. For example, let's take the original estimated hours. Let's select this measure. Now I see the distribution per fixed version. And now I want to also distribute it according to issue type. Let's put the issue type here, and let's open it. Okay, so I see that all of the original estimated hours are on stories. The measure knows, it's like filling it knows the context of the measure. The context of the measure is that I want to show the information, for example, in this cell for fixed version 6 and issue type story. So the measure tells me that information here. But of course, I cannot put, I cannot distribute here at the top according to original estimated hours. It's not logical thing to say. I can put an issue type there and see the distribution per issue type. I can put here the assignee. I can put a priority. I can put even a custom field, for example, t-shirt size or epic direction. So what the main difference between a measure and the dimension is that the dimension is showing me the list of values for that field, and the measure is measuring for me the amount of numeric information according to the specific member in the row and in the column. In the row and the column, and of course also in the pages, because if I change here, the information will be changed as well. So the measure is something very special that allows me to see information numerically. And as I said, it is summing up the information, summing up. So this 162 original estimated hours is actually a sum up of all the original estimated hours of all the issues which are stories and belong to version 8.0. This is the distribution. Okay, so basically in a nutshell, measure is something that you see inside the table, inside the cells of the table. Okay, you select it here, but it is appearing inside the table. And then dimensions are something that you put in the rows, in the columns, and also in the pages. So you can control which values appear, which members appear in the x-axis, in the vertical, which values appear in the y and the x-axis, in the horizontal, and also which filtering will appear in the report. That is the basic definition. There is a question here. Is there a reason I see different values on the same page? Maybe your filtering is different. Maybe we are not using the same filtering. Maybe I filter for demo alpha and you filter for demo beta and whatever. But basically, once we have the same configuration of the report, we will see the same information. After my report is ready, of course, I can visualize it in whatever way I want. Yes, but we will talk about it later. First of all, we need to understand how to create this raw data of table showing correctly, and then we will be able to go and continue with the visualization. All right, and last thing is about properties. We have the fourth term, which is the property. So property, basically any field in Jira can be a property. It can be a text field, it can be selection list, checkbox, whatever custom field you have, and also all the system fields, they have their own properties. And I will explain what is the difference between a property and a measure and a member. Okay, you need to understand it very good. So in order to do that, let's go to the epics table. And let's try to create this epics table from scratch. Yes. So let's create a new report. I just click on this new button at the top right, new report. I will create a new empty report. So in order to create my report, I need to put something in the rows. I need to put something in the columns. Yes, some dimension. Doesn't have to be because we have also the measures, but at least something in the rows. So what I want to put is the issues dimension to put here in the rows. I want to see the issues per epic. So I will click on the all issues by epics, like that. And I want here to put the project in the pages. So I'll be able to view only specific project. Let's say demo alpha. And now I have list of epics. All right. Now, what information can I present on those epics? I can present measures and I can present properties, and I will show you what is the difference. What is the difference? For example, the measure issues created measures for me the amount of issues under each epic, including the epic itself. Yes, so I know there are 12 epics under the 12 issues under the epic, including the epic itself, including the stories, including the subtasks. There are 12 issues created under this epic. The measure issues resolved shows me the same, but for resolved issues. So for example, here, I know that there are 23 issues, but only 2 are resolved under that epic. Okay. Again, this is automatically summed up. I remind you that measures are automatically summed up according to the dimension that we use. So I could have very easily use another dimension, not necessarily the issue dimension. I could have used, for example, the status dimension and put it here, and I would get different numbers, but still the same measures, because the measure doesn't care which dimension I use. The measure always will show me the correct information according to the members of the dimension that there are in each row. All right. So of course, in the done status, all of the issues, all of the 238 issues are resolved. That makes sense. And of course, in the in progress and to do statuses, none of them are resolved. This is a correct behavior of Jira. Okay, but let's go back to the issue dimension. Put it in the rows. We look at the epics. We look at some measures. And now I'm asking myself, okay, but I want more information. I want, for example, we have a custom field called epic direction. I was able to import that custom field. This is a single select list. I was able to import it as a property. I go to here to the issue properties option under the predefined, under issue properties. And I have many properties here. And one of them is the epic direction. All right, so there is some field which has 4 lists of values, yes, north, south, east, and west. And for each epic, we have some piece of information, yes, some value in that field. I imported this field as a property. That's why I'm able to show this information in my table as an issue property. In order to do that, I first had to put the issue dimension in the rows, and then I had to select from the measures the correct property, which is epic direction. Please don't be confused. We have also a dimension called epic direction. We have a dimension like that. But that's not what I want. Look what happens if we put the epic direction in the columns. Look what will happen. Let's turn off this one. And now I have 2 measures. And now I take my epic direction. I put it here in the columns. So now I can expand this one, and I will see the distribution of the epics for each one of the measures according to the various members of the dimension. That's not what I wanted. Okay, in this specific example, that's not what I wanted. What I wanted is to see for each specific epic, what is the direction of the epic? Very simple. So in that case, the wrong thing to do was to put the epic direction in the columns. I do want it to be a column, but it should be an issue property column. So I'm removing this epic direction. going to the measures, and inside the measures, I'm turning on the property called epic direction. That's a property. All right. So now let's see more example. Let's say that I want there is a measure called story points created. Let's turn it on, and then we will see the amount of story points under each epic. So for example, this epic in total contains 59 story points. This is coming from the stories inside the epic. I can expand this epic, and I will be able to see the amount of story points for each one of the stories. Okay, 8, 9, 6, 3, 7. All right, so I know, and that's good, I know that the story points created is a measure that is automatically summing up the information across my hierarchy. So my hierarchy right now is the stories, and above them there are epics. So I know that the epics will contain the total story points of the stories inside the epic. Now, in addition to that, I was able to import a property called issue story points. Issue story points. Let's find it. I don't find it here, so let's just go here to the measure, issue story points. Okay, we have here in the properties issue story points. Let's turn it on and understand the difference between a measure and a property. So let's see. This is a story. This is a story. Let's add also the property called issue type, so we will not be confused what is each one. The property called issue type, I turn it on. This is an epic, this is a story. Let's put the issue type here. Okay, so let's focus on this epic. This epic here has 17 issues under it, 18 including itself, and total of 59 story points, and this is the distribution for each story. Each story by its own has, of course, the measure. Let's freeze headers so we see the headers. Each story by its own is shows me the correct measure for the story, but also the property for that story. And the measure and the property gives me the same information. Okay, of course, because this story, for example, DA41, the amount of story points for that story is 9. So of course, the measure will give me 9, and the property will also give me 9. But here at the epic level, we start to see the difference between a measure and a property. The measure is, as I said, automatically summed up to the relevant member, automatically summed up, while the property only gives me the information at the relevant issue level. So that epic DA103 does not have any story point updated in this issue. For that reason, the property called story points, yes, is empty, and it is not summing up. All right, so if you want to sum up something which is numeric, you will use a measure, you will not use a property. Now let's see what happens if I now, in this configuration of report, I remove the issue dimension, and put, for example, the fixed version dimension in the rows. And let's open that, and let's open that, and let's open that. So in version 8.0, I know there are 42 issues in total. Out of them, 16 are results, and the total story points for them is 125. But of course, the property called issue epic direction is empty, and the property called issue story points is empty because this is not an issue. And those properties, issue epic direction and issue story points, are properties of issue. How do I know that? Because they start with the word issue. Every property of an issue starts with the word issue. So this is relevant only if I have the issue dimension in the rows. Right now I have the fixed version in the rows. That's why the properties are empty, because I don't see here issues, I see here versions. But you see that the measures still give me the correct information. The measures are always giving me the correct information. The measures are always summing up the information according to the member, according to the relevant member. For example, here it's 8.0. Here it's all the released versions, etc. However, the properties will be empty if I don't see here a specific issue. And here we don't have any specific issue. All right. So I assume that now we are on the same page with what is a dimension, what is a member, what is a measure, and what is a property. Just to finalize this before we go to a little break, dimension is any field in Jira. Sorry, dimension is any field in Jira that has list of values. Doesn't matter if it's single select or multi-select, doesn't matter if it's system field or custom field, but has to be a list of values. Issue dimension is also considered some kind of a dimension. And there are also other special dimensions like time dimension. We'll talk about it. A member is a single value from that dimension. Yes, single value from that dimension. For example, priority, then high is a member of the priority dimension. Measure is any numeric field which is automatically summed up. It can be a built-in measure of EazyBI, like issues created, issues resolved. It can be a custom field, a numeric custom field that you import into Jira, into EazyBI, sorry, and it is automatically summed up. And property, it's a field on the issue level. Actually, there are also other special properties, for example, on the sprint level and on the version level. We will talk about it later. But most of the properties are on the issue level, and they represent any field. I can take, for example, a single line text field and import it as a property. And if you go to the import definition of EazyBI in the source data settings, and you will look at the custom fields import options, you will see that some of them has option to be imported as a dimension because they are a list of values. Some of them are able to be imported as a measure because they are numeric. There is also some little complication here that also dates are able to be imported as measures, but we will leave that for later. All of the fields can be imported as properties. As I said, property, you are not restricted. Anything can be a property, but not anything can be a measure, only numeric and dates. And not anything can be dimensions, only list of values, single or multi, but list of values. So that's why you see that not everything you can import as a dimension, not everything you can import as a measure, but everything you can import as properties. That's why you see this difference. There are all kinds of advanced settings that you are able to enforce EazyBI to import something as a dimension, although it is not possible to do it by default. Yes, we will talk about it later. And this one we'll also talk about later, import value changes to analyze historical changes. So that is the main thing that you need to know about the terminology of EazyBI. Those 4 terms, if you know them and you know them good, you know the difference between them. And we, of course, we will do a lot of examples after the break, then you will understand more. If you know those good, all other things will be much easier.